this video, I'm going to be telling you guys why Wilt Chamberlain is still overlooked and why people still don't give him the respect that he deserves, and why he is basically just a freak of nature. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. So, diving right into this video here, why Wilt Chamberlain is better than you think, and why he still isn't getting the respect that he deserves. So just in case you don't know Wilt Chamberlain's accomplishments as of right now, and his career stats, I'm going to go over it right here. Wilt Chamberlain is part of the Hall of Fame. He's a 13-time All-Star. He's an 11-time rebounding champ. He's a 2-time NBA champ, 1971-72 Finals MVP, 1959-60 Rookie of the Year, 7-time scoring champ, 1967-68 assist champ, 10-time All-NBA team, 1959-60 All-Star MVP. He's a 4-time MVP, and his career stats are 30.1 points per game, 22.9 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, while shooting 54% from the field, and a pretty low 51.1% from the line. But that was also because back then people weren't really anyway the best shooters. But I'll also go over part of the reason for that. While playing 45.8 minutes per game, and when he played, there was no 3-point line at the time, and the NBA did not count steals and blocks yet, which Wilt was both really good at, since he was in general one of the best defensive players in NBA history, if not the best. So for his physical attributes, just in case you guys don't know, he is 7'1", 275 pounds of pure muscle. His strength, just in case you don't know how strong he is, Wilt Chamberlain could bench press near 600 pounds, which is 272 kilograms. Dwight Howard can bench around 365 pounds. Dwight is already, and this was in his prime, and Dwight is one of the strongest players as well in NBA history. And even with all of the stuff we know today about conditioning and all of that, he still can bench press very high, and this is already very good, 365 pounds, which is 165 kilos, but it's still nothing compared to Wilt Chamberlain. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, if you don't know, is a bodybuilder, and was one of the best. Is one of the most famous bodybuilders I think in the world. Said Wilt Chamberlain is the strongest person he'd ever met. A former basketball player also said that Wilt once just carried him with one hand easily in the middle of an NBA game. And then for his speed, Wilt could run 100 yards, which is 92 meters in 10 seconds. If he could run 100 meters in under 11 seconds just for wrestling. This isn't even bad if someone gets this in the Olympics. And with all of the things we have learned about strength and conditioning, and whatnot, he was also faster than all of his teams. He was even faster than a top running back in the NFL, which is like the position. And as for his vertical, images of Wilt have showed him nearly touching the top of the backboard, and even maybe even touching the top of the backboard. Because of the angle, you can't see completely, but you can definitely see that he is jumping extremely high. Some say he had a 36-inch vertical, which is really good, especially considering they didn't have all of the data for strength and conditioning the body that we do have today. However, other sources have said that Wilt had as high as a 50-inch vertical. In case you don't know, in Jordan's prime, he had around a 46 to 48-inch vertical. So if Wilt at 7'1" has a higher vertical than Jordan, that is just crazy. But anyways, for stories of him in his later career, this was already later on in his career, but when he was around 50, the Nets offered him over $350,000 to play 7 games, but he declined. And this is already considering the salary back then. Obviously, if that was today, that would be way, way more. in case you guys don't know, that's obviously the salaries today are way bigger than they were before. Um, at around 50, NBA teams were offering him a player coach deal because of how dominant he was, and how strong he was at that age, and how like, and how and then how strong and how fast, and how really everything he was, and he was still probably the strongest, fastest, and the highest able to jump basketball player out there still at the age of 50. Wilt was still the strongest, fastest, and most athletic player in the world, even at the age of 50. And many NBA teams were still trying to get Wilt on their team when Wilt was literally 50 and he'd already retired. Later on in Wilt's career, he was being told he can only score and grab rebounds, so he went on to lead the league in assists. However, in that season, he was told he can't score anymore and that he's just getting assists because he can't do that. So he went on to score 50 points in 2 consecutive games. That really just shows that he can score at will. At this point, Wilt had already retired for this story. However, Magic was playing a pickup game and Wilt was playing Magic. Magic put up a skyhook and Wilt blocked the shot. Magic thought it was a goaltend. Wilt said, "All right, look, we're gonna play a game till 12. We'll do it again. Winners stay, and from there, and there will be no more shots made at this basket." And then Wilt, who was already a 42-year-old, went on to block every shot, which is just crazy. He could probably, so basically, not only could he score at will, he could block shots at will. So more stories. He had been dunked on by one person. Obviously, not many people can say that I dunked on Wilt Chamberlain, and Wilt was obviously not happy. So he blocked when that player tried to dunk on Wilt. Once again, he blocked his dunk when he tried to dunk on Wilt again, and then dislocated his shoulder. By now, you should think Wilt is one of the best basketball players, or at least one of like the strongest, and his physical attributes perfectly fit in with basketball. They do, but they also fit in pretty well with another sport, volleyball. After what was done with basketball, he became a professional volleyball player. If you guys didn't already know, Wilt was the first to introduce the finger roll to the game, even though obviously later on other players went on to do it, and then did it even more than Wilt did. He did this because he didn't like dunking on people too much, or dunking in general too much. I don't really know why, and he still dunked, but he just didn't like dunking too much. But don't get me wrong, when he wanted to, he could. So once he went up for a dunk, slammed it down, and then it hit a foot of the defender, and his foot got dislocated. To do this, Wilt would have had to slam it down extremely hard and also have superhuman strength. So what has Wilt done? Like things that Wilt has done. So these are some obvious things, but he holds the record for the most points in a game with 100 points in a single basketball game. Wilt averaged over 48 minutes per game. In the season that he averaged over 50 points per game. This may not seem possible, but this was because in some games it went to overtime. In the entire season, in this entire season, he also averaged 50 points per game, and he played every minute that he could but 8 minutes because he got ejected. He has never fouled out in his career though, which is just crazy for someone that had a career as long as his. He also holds the record for the most rebounds in a single game with 55 rebounds against Bill Russell. Just in case you don't know Bill Russell, he did win 11 championships in his career with the Celtics and has the most championships in NBA history, and is also one of the best rebounders in NBA history as well. Wilt was also an 11-time rebounding champion, as I did say earlier. Wilt is also one of very few players to have blocked Kareem's skyhook. But a fun fact about that, one of the people that blocked Kareem Skyhook was a 6'8" player with a near 50-inch vertical. Wilt is the only player to block Kareem's Skyhook twice, though. So why he is still overlooked and should be at least in the GOAT discussion. It is very hard to say that one person is the GOAT because it can be a different generation, style of play, different position, different gifts, and all types of other things. Stats also don't say the full story, so it is very hard to compare different players. However, Wilt deserves to be in the GOAT debate at least. Later on in Wilt's career, he said he stopped trying to score too much and more on other things like winning a championship. And Jordan wasn't as great of a scorer on the Wizards, even though he was still pretty decent. So I only did this for all years except Wilt's last 3 seasons and Jordan's last 2 seasons. Because for Jordan it was on the Wizards, and for Wilt was when he started concentrating more on other things than scoring. Here are his per 36-minute stats compared to Jordan. By the way, I think Wilt might have also already started trying to score less a bit earlier though, because he had already started concentrating a bit more on other things, but he was still averaging quite a bit of points, so I still put that into this thing. So per 36 minutes, MJ versus Wilt will average 26.5 points per game, 18.7 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, while shooting 53% from the field. Obviously, very little stats because the NBA didn't count too many things back then, like steals, blocks, and they didn't have a three-point line or nothing like that. However, for MJ, he did average 29.4 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, while shooting 50.5% from the field. So obviously, Wilt is more efficient from the field, but in MJ's era, they already did also have the three-point line, so that might also change some things. But MJ averaged more points than Wilt, but Wilt did play way more minutes and is way more of a physically kind of gifted player, even though MJ does have an extreme vertical and very big hands, which makes it easier for him to palm the ball and stuff. And MJ also isn't too short. Obviously, way above 6 feet tall. And MJ is still a better passer, but I also don't want to say that because when Wilt was told that he can only score, he did lead the entire NBA in assists. And then when he was told that he can't score anymore, he went on to get 50 points two consecutive games. So he can definitely do anything at will. But yeah. So how Wilt Chamberlain change the league forever? Will obviously change the league forever since he made basketball a way bigger sport and made many people start playing. However, one way that Wilt changed the game of basketball was by him being so dominant that the NBA had to make a rule change. Obviously, many top players like Shaq, they've had to do this for. For Shaq, it was actually changing making the backboard stronger, and then other players is like KD as well. For example, they've done that for. And many other players as well, but I'm not going to say every single player. But this rule change was caused because of the following. Wilt wasn't a great free throw shooter, so because of this, in his last attempt at the line, he would miss the free throw deliberately and then grab the rebound and then put it back up. So in order to stop this, the NBA made a rule that you cannot go in front of the line in the middle of shooting the free throw. Another rule change was that they cannot inbound the ball over the backboard because with that, they could easily alley-oop it off the inbound to Wilt Chamberlain, who would just get an easy dunk. Wilt was obviously very popular because he was even originally going to fight Muhammad Ali, who is obviously one of the most famous athletes in history. So conclusion on Wilt Chamberlain. So by now, hopefully you guys should think that Wilt Chamberlain should at least be part of the GOAT discussion and still doesn't, and that he still doesn't get the respect that he does deserve. He is an absolute freak of nature, and if he wanted to, he could probably have been a professional volleyball player and been really good or even dominated in track and field. So no matter what he decided, he was obviously destined for greatness. But Wilt is the definition of a player that can score at will, and maybe even block shots at will. If they had counted blocks back then we might have known. But back when Wilt played, they didn't count blocks or steals, and they didn't have a 3-point line. However, if Wilt played today, he would definitely lead the league in blocks, maybe steals, and he also did have the off the backboard fadeaway in his arsenal. So maybe he would have even learned to shoot the 3-pointer. We never know. And but this is only considering if Wilt basically was still more or less the same player, except after he became a pro, he was put into today's time, something like that. But anyway, people say that if Wilt played in today's era, he wouldn't have been as dominant. But if anything, I think Wilt would have been even more dominant with all of the conditioning, strength and conditioning or whatnot that we have today. And if he played today, even if he did the same things he did before, he would probably be looked at as a better player than he currently is due to them counting blocks and steals and other things like there being like a salary cap. So then would probably also have more championships, since then Bill Russell can't be on a team with 6 Hall of Famers, obviously since they won 11 championships in 13 years, which is just insane. And then that's gonna wrap it up for this video.
So, guys, hopefully by now you also think that Wilt Chamberlain definitely deserves to at least be in the GOAT discussion, and why he is one of the most dominant players in NBA history, and why he is one of the best NBA players in history. And hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below if you want to see any video in particular. Subscribe with notifications on so you won't miss another video.